right, welcome everyone to Big Kev's World. I had the name originally as Chaotic Outlaw. It was confusing some people, so I figured, you know what? Go back to where, go back to my name. So yeah, my name is Big Kev. Everybody that has subscribed to my new channel so far, I appreciate it. Much love. Thank you very much. And for those of you who are not subscribed, after the video is done, if you like what I'm talking about, if you like my content, then smash that like button, hit that little bell, and do the shit that YouTube wants you to do, and subscribe. Now, I was gonna do a thing where I was gonna have AEW and WWE both together, but I'm gonna do them both separately because that's a lot of talk to talk about both of them as a brand and as a whole. So I like dissecting things. So I'm going to take this time to dissect AEW, where I think AEW is going to go. Very complex with AEW. It's almost like nothing else is good except for AEW, and that's not true. That's not true at all. And I'm not trying to be an AEW hater. I'm not one of those kind of people to do that. I, for one, am grateful that we have another wrestling promotion out there. It's now it's like as a wrestler, you don't have to think, oh my god, I have to either go to New Japan now, or I'm going to be stuck on Impact Wrestling, or I'm going to be stuck at Ring of Honor. To be honest with you, now everybody was always reaching for that brass ring. WWE was the brass ring. They were the ones that everybody wanted to go to because that's where the larger than life characters are at. When you walk those halls of Madison Square Garden, that was WWF/WWE. That was the base. You wanted to go to New York. You wanted to go up north. You wanted to be in that environment. But now, the last 3 or 4 years, AEW has came about. And it's really cool. It's really nostalgic to see AEW on TNT. If you were ever a part of the Monday Night Wars with WWE and WCW, I was one of those people. I have like a bunch of VHS. I have a shit ton of VHS tapes that I would go and I would record a little bit of Raw, I would record a little bit of Nitro, a little bit of Raw, a little bit of Nitro, back and forth. And it was like, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I was a WCW guy. I did like what WWE was doing. I mean, I did like Stone Cold, I liked The Rock and Undertaker and all that, but I was more of a WCW guy. People don't know this, but I'm a big Hulk Hogan fan. One of the biggest Hulk Hogan fans out there. So when he jumped ship to WCW and then the NWO was formed, yeah, I was hooked. And it was compelling TV. It was compelling, and that's the one thing too. I think people are wanting this AEW and WWE thing to be like WCW and WWE and the Monday Night Wars. Like they already tried AEW and NXT on Wednesday nights. And NXT actually beat them, I think, once or twice. If I'm not mistaken, they beat them once or twice in the ratings. So it's pretty shitty that you're getting beat by the third brand of WWE. That's not a really good starting point. But when I see AEW, I know that Kenny Omega was popular in New Japan. The Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes left WWE, and he really established himself as the American Nightmare. He established himself away from there. And he was working with companies like Impact and NWA Power, which I'm a big fan of NWA Power. The way they do their setups and stuff like that is so old school. Kind of reminds me of the old Memphis wrestling thing where they would like talk right there with the announcer and then they go right straight to the ring. They'll talk right in front of the ring. I'm a sucker for that. That to me, that's really cool. But AEW, they started to make a little bit of a splash. They brought in Moxley, which I think WWE didn't really know what to do with Moxley. I think if they really would have ran with Moxley and let Moxley be who he wanted to be as Dean Ambrose, I think that he would still be in WWE right now, to be honest with you. But that's not how the cards were written. That's not how it was done. So now he's in AEW and having a successful run. Rusev. I was a huge fan of Rusev in WWE. The whole Rusev day, I thought he was, for a big guy, he moves very smooth in the ring. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, why is WWE not pulling the trigger on Rusev? And again, just like with Ambrose, Rusev decides to go to AEW, and now he's resurrected himself as Miro. But the one thing that concerns me about AEW is they don't want to follow the path of what WCW did. You don't want to throw out all that money just because you can. Yes, Tony Khan is a big wrestling fan. You can tell him he's a mark. You can see it on his face. He's a big wrestling fan with a lot of money. And there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that in the pandemic last year, they said the quarter earnings, they were in the red. They were in the red. And if you're going to be on TNT, I'm pretty sure TNT is expecting them to have better ratings than what they've had. Now, here recently, their ratings have been up a little bit because of all the noise of Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson and CM Punk, and rightfully so. People are pumped about that, so they're excited to see these three gentlemen in AEW. But, the thing with Tony Khan, though, is the fact is AEW is over there snatching talent from WWE. It's like they're taking, you got Matt Hardy in there now. John Moxley's there. Pac, who used to be Neville, is in there. You have Aleister Black. You have Andrade. Christian. Paul White. Big Show. Mark Henry's on there. Jim Ross is on there. Cody Rhodes used to be from WWE. Now you got Punk and Cole and Bryan Danielson. And possibly here they may go after Bray Wyatt, which would be a good pickup for WWE. And plus they had Luke Harper, Brody Lee at that, before his passing. So I'm looking at this, and everybody used to make that when TNA was popular at the time before they brought in Hogan and Flair and all that funk. At one point, people used to get worried about TNA because TNA had their own identity. They had their own identity, and then they started bringing in these guys from the WWE or guys from WCW back in the day, and then TNA just turned into they started losing money quick. And Dixie Carter was a rich woman. I'm just throwing that out there. TNA lost a lot of money. They weren't able to pay their wrestlers on time. They weren't able to pay their wrestlers for a pay-per-view or a show. And that becomes bad. Not saying AEW is going to get to that particular point, but you brought in Sting. The biggest thing that AEW did was when they signed Chris Jericho. When they did that big signing Chris Jericho was a big thing. Because Jericho is one of the best wrestlers I know that can resurrect himself and resurrect a character. He's very good at changing his character and changing his persona. Jericho is one of the best at doing so. When he went to New Japan Wrestling and he got that permission from Vince McMahon to go and face Kenny Omega. He kept saying, I will never go to another wrestling promotion in the United States. And then boom, he showed up for the All Out pay-per-view, and Jericho signed a multi-year deal with AEW, and it was, but here's the thing though, Jericho still has some good ties with WWE because, he was on Stone Cold's podcast, Broken Skull Sessions on the Peacock / WWE network. So Jericho still got a little bit of, I think once Jericho's career is over, and I think WWE will welcome him back at open arms as a Hall of Famer. I mean, there's no reason why they should not put Jericho as a Hall of Famer. So then AEW decides to bring in Sting, which was a pretty big deal. You're bringing in Sting, that nostalgia of Sting, having him back in TNA, he probably, to Sting, he felt home because when he was in WCW, that's where they were at. They were on TNT and TBS. Sting proved to the world that just because that match he had with Seth Rollins back in 2015's Night of Champions, he proved that he can still wrestle. He can still move around with the neck. He took a couple of bumps, took a power bomb, from Brian Cage. And Sting, though, I'm pretty sure Sting would not be in the ring. He would not be in an AEW ring if he would have gotten the match that he wanted in WWE, which is all he wanted was Undertaker. Whether it was a cinematic match or whether it was a regular match, all he wanted was the Undertaker. And when he didn't get it, and his deal with WWE ran out, and he went to go sign with AEW because AEW is allowing him to still. The one thing AEW is good at is they're good at using old wrestlers. They're still good at using Hall of Famers, old wrestlers. They're good at doing that. Look what they're doing with Jake Roberts, Arn Anderson, Cody Blanchard. They're using these guys. They're even using Taz in a very good setting. And that's one reason why I think guys like Mark Henry and Big Show, aka Paul White, decided to go to AEW themselves because Mark Henry probably realized, hey, look, man, my career is not over. Mark Henry wanted to be in the WWE front office. He wanted to go out and scout for talent and stuff like that, but WWE wouldn't hire him to do that. Now in AEW, he can do that. Paul White's probably thinking his career wasn't over, but WWE was making him a laughing stock there the last, year or two in his deal? Especially when they had that Legends show last year on Raw. And basically having him being punked out by Randy Orton. That takes a lot of... if I was in Paul White's shoes, yeah, I would probably be like, you know what, screw you. I'm out of here. And then another big signing they did right after that was Christian. Now, that one surprised me because we saw him at the Royal Rumble. He was in really great shape. He lasted quite a bit of time in the Royal Rumble. It was good to see him and Edge together. Why WWE didn't pull the trigger and sign Christian? Well, I'll get to that in my WWE video a little bit later because I'm going to dissect WWE's thing here too. But the problem with Christian was Christian didn't want to be done. He wanted to go out his way, and the last couple of years he hadn't been wrestling, he didn't get a chance to go out his way. So I don't fault Christian for taking the money and going to AEW. He's working now. He's also back helping out with Impact. We all know he was a former TNA World Champion. So now he's back over there defending the Impact Championship on there. And it's also good that AEW's got a working relationship with other promotions because it kind of does go back to that territory thing. You get to see Harley Race as the NWA champion go up against Jerry Lawler, who was the Memphis champion. And then you would see, before the whole Rocket Wrestling, before Hogan went to WWE title, you would see Bruno Sammartino or Andre the Giant go to other different promotions and go to New Japan and put their skills out against the best in the world. Would I love to see a WWE AEW Forbidden Door? Would I like to see Kenny Omega show up on SmackDown and challenge Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns show up to Dynamite and do the same thing? Absolutely. It'd be fun. It'd be entertaining. It would be really cool to see that. Do I think we're going to? No. Because of how prideful WWE is and how out of touch Vince McMahon is. To be honest with you, I really don't see that happening. But AEW decided to, after Christian, they was like, WWE made a big mistake by getting rid of Aleister Black and Andrade, and now they're doing their thing here in AEW. Aleister Black's in a feud right now with Cody Rhodes. And WWE just did not know how to use Aleister Black. And I remember when Paul Heyman was in charge of Raw, he was pushing Aleister Black. I actually like Aleister Black. I like his mixed martial arts style. I really like how his character was over. But again, like I said, there you go. You have a guy who's over with the fans. WWE don't pay attention to it. But AEW, Tony Khan, like I said, is one of the biggest wrestling marks out there. He's one of the biggest wrestling fans out there. He's like that little kid that goes, he was like that little kid that went to Toys R Us going, I want that, and he got it. That's exactly how Tony Khan is. It's not really smart to run your business by basically just hiring everything, just buying up everything you see, because then your other wrestlers that were there from the very beginning get lost in the shuffle. Because now you're also working. Now the thing was with them in Impact Wrestling, they're working out that deal with Impact Wrestling. Is now you have like Don Callis comes on there with Kenny Omega, and you get Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson on there with the Young Bucks, and it's like wrestlers are getting lost in the shuffle, and that's what happens when you start hiring every single person you see. And we all heard the rumor earlier in the year that CM Punk has signed with AEW. Now, I didn't want to believe it until I saw it, because we all know how the dirt sheets can be, and we all know how sometimes inaccurate they can really be. So when I saw CM Punk show up in Chicago, I knew he was going to get a big-ass reaction in Chicago. Are you kidding me? That's where he's from. That's where he lives. And it was really cool to see him. For 7 years, he's been gone in the ring. Now, he made a stupid mistake and went to go to UFC and got his ass whooped twice. I was never really... excuse me. This may not be a popular choice here, but I was never a big fan of Punk. My respect for Punk went out the door when he walked out on WWE in 2014. I look at it like this: if you are, yes, you're an independent contractor, but if you sign a contract, you should honor your contract and get the fuck out then. The fact that he walked out, and yes, we all know WWE had a crappy doctor. We all know what they did to Punk, and I don't blame him. But his promo the night of his debut on Dynamite rubbed me the wrong way. Because he pretty much said, well, I haven't been in professional wrestling since I left Ring of Honor. When we all know WWE likes to call themselves sports entertainment. They've been doing it for the last 30, 40 years. It's nothing new. But when Punk said that, I'm sitting there thinking, do you really honestly think that you as CM Punk, if you left Ring of Honor and went to AEW, do you think you would be as popular as you are now if you didn't go to WWE? I don't think so. You wouldn't be the best in the world. You wouldn't be having the Cult of Personality song and all that. And the fact that CM Punk went on there and pretty much didn't give WWE any credit for the reason why he is who he is baffles me. Because WWE gave him one of the longest title reigns that we've seen in a long time. He was having those great matches with everybody. He was facing Cena, got to face The Undertaker at WrestleMania, he got to face The Rock, he got to face Brock Lesnar. I know all Punk wanted was to have that main event, that one main event at WrestleMania. That's all he wanted. And I understood that. But when you have a guy like Punk, see, this is the reason why I'm okay with Daniel Bryan, aka Bryan Danielson. He's done it the right way. I love Bryan Danielson because he's got so much professional. So he's being such a professional right now because he's not saying anything bad about WWE. He doesn't want to do the yes chance in AEW, even though the fans are still doing it to him. Anytime he comes out, he's not doing it. And you know what's weird though is that WWE gave him the same exact deal that AEW gave. The only difference is Vince McMahon, because we all know that WWE's got that, you know, they got that lawsuit about all that concussions, and we all know the whole Chris Benoit incident. They're being precautious about stuff, and that's why they wasn't letting Christian do it. That's why they didn't let Edge do it for a while. That's why they're not letting Paige do it right now. Get back in the ring. That's why they weren't going to let Sting do it because of his age. But they let Daniel Bryan come back, but I feel like Daniel Bryan was handcuffed. And you could tell by his performance, he was handcuffed. He was still doing some really great stuff in SmackDown. And Daniel Bryan's a hell of a performer. So this is a really big gain for AEW as far as that. But I think the reason why he wanted to go to AEW, because I think he wanted to face the talent that he never got to face. I mean, he wants to fight Kenny Omega, and he's finally getting that opportunity to fight Kenny Omega. He's having that opportunity eventually to face Punk again. He's getting that chance to face Adam Cole again. He's getting the opportunity to probably face Cody Rhodes and, you know, work with Aleister Black and work with all these amazing young talent that he didn't have a chance to in WWE. So I understand why Bryan Danielson did what he did. The only difference between Danielson and Punk is Punk. The one thing that I don't like his smug look. I don't like his attitude. Because he came out there and said that him, Cole, and Bryan Danielson coming to AEW is bigger than when Kevin Nash and Scott Hall went to WCW. And that is full of bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, when they went to WCW, no one knew then because they didn't have the dirt sheets. We didn't really have the internet going on that much then. So we didn't know. We're just like, wow, what is Razor Ramon and Diesel, Big Daddy Cool doing here on Nitro? That's how the fans looked at it. They're like, wow, this is a WWE takeover here. And that's why it worked, because it was organic. And then when they got Hogan to turn heel, you fucking get out of here with that shit. That's the only thing with Punk that rubbed me the wrong way. Now, that match with him and Darby Allin was fantastic. Darby Allin's a great young talent. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed their match. And Punk's one of the best in the ring. Pound for pound. I will never deny that. But, you know, Punk acts like WWE didn't exist. But I'm sitting there thinking, weren't you hired by Fox to do WWE backstage there for 2 years? You know, I mean, right there. And WWE dropped the ball about trying to re-sign Punk because Fox giving him that $1 billion deal. Fox was willing to back the money to get him into WWE again. And I'm sure if they would have done that, he would have taken the money and he would be in WWE instead of AEW. And if Punk tells you otherwise, he's lying. Now, the thing about Adam Cole, that was just like, wow, they thought Adam Cole thought he was in a longer contract. WWE thought he was in a longer contract. That's WWE's that was their neglect not to know when Adam Cole's contract ends. But I think Adam Cole fits in there perfectly because I saw him in New Japan. He was part of the Bullet Club. He's worked with, he knows Young Bucks, he knows Omega. Adam Cole fits in perfectly with what AEW is trying to do. Adam Cole had a great run on NXT. He was one of the big reasons why NXT got successful there. And he learned a lot. He learned from one of his childhood heroes. He learned from Shawn Michaels. So now he's taken that craft that he learned from NXT and WWE, and now he's in AEW with all that knowledge. And that's the thing too that's why I'm a little bit more cool about Cole being in AEW and Daniel Bryan being in AEW than I am with Punk. Because Adam Cole's being smart, and so is Danielson. They're not saying a lot of bad stuff about WWE. Jericho doesn't even really say that much bad stuff about WWE. Of course, they do a little bit too, because they got, you want to promote your promotion. You want to make sure that all eyes are on you and not WWE. I mean, that's just simple economics. But the biggest free agent out there right now, and I believe that his 90-day clause ends on Halloween this year, is Bray Wyatt. It's a crying shame. That man is so talented. It makes me sick. But in a good way. He is so great on the mic. He was great with the Bray Wyatt character, with the Wyatt family. And then he comes back. He loses that weight. He gets even more leaner. And he creates The Fiend. All his idea. Shit you not. All his idea, too. And then, you put the world title, you put the Universal title on him to have him go to Crown Jewel and lose it to Goldberg. And then Goldberg loses it right because you got the idea, hey, I'm going to put Roman Reigns and Goldberg. Then the pandemic hits, and you're inside that little performance center, and you just have him drop it to Braun Strowman. Bray Wyatt deserves so much better than what he got. So that's why I think he's going to excel when he goes to AEW. I wouldn't be shocked if they put him as the leader of the Dark Order where Brody Lee was at. I would not be shocked at all if they do that. But that is WWE's loss. WWE losing him, Adam Cole, Daniel Bryan, that hurts because Daniel Bryan, the last match we saw Daniel Bryan was at WrestleMania this year, and that triple threat between Edge and Roman Reigns that tore that roof off the place. That's the last time we saw Daniel Bryan in the ring. Tony Khan's, he's smart. When AEW tells you that they're doing their own thing, that they're not paying attention to what WWE is doing, they're bullshitting you. Of course they're paying attention to what WWE is doing. I mean, it's like in any business you got, back in the day when we had, before it was streaming, we had all those video stores. They had Hollywood Video and Blockbuster Video. If Blockbuster Video told you they weren't paying attention to what Hollywood Video was doing, they were bullshitting you. Plain and simple. When you have a company like McDonald's and they have a competing company like Burger King, you don't think McDonald's ain't paying attention to Burger King with their little specials and shit like that? Absolutely, they're paying attention. So when AEW comes on there saying, "Oh, we're just doing our own thing. We're not really caring about what WWE is doing or what NXT is doing," stuff like that. Um, you do care. And by the way, and when I will defend, this is where I want to defend WWE on. You had a Wednesday night war with NXT that didn't have all of WWE's talent on there. You didn't face Raw. You didn't face SmackDown on Wednesday night. You didn't beat SmackDown or Raw on a rating. Now you did. Now they did beat Raw here recently in the demographic for the 18 and 40 demographic. But let's be frank. You know, Chris Jericho and the Young Bucks, they were all talking a major shit. They were talking major shit when that whole Wednesday Night Wars was going on. They were talking all that junk. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, you're talking all that junk about WWE's developmental third brand. That's something to be proud of, right? Now, some of y'all might think, oh, wow, man, Big Kev's like a big hater of AEW. I'm not. I think it's great that they're on there. I think it's, it's going to take, it's been 3 or 4 years. It's going to take them a while. Even if they sign Bray Wyatt, even with Cole and Bryan and Punk, it's going to take a while. It's going to take them a while to get those ratings up that they need. And it's very hard in this time of this and the world that we live in now. It's hard for professional wrestling to get those ratings that you want, because now all anyone's got to do is, I don't have to watch the show. All I got to do is tune on the YouTube and watch the clips of Raw, SmackDown, or AEW. They don't have to pay attention to it. Hell, with Raw, you can go on Hulu the next day and watch it if you don't see it. Streaming has taken over, and it's hard, and it's very hard for any wrestling promotion, whether it's WWE, AEW, Impact, NWA Power, Ring of Honor, New Japan, whatever. It's very hard for any promotion to get anywhere with streaming, because people are more at home now because of the pandemic and stuff. I understand that, but there's ways of finding out about what happened on Dynamite, or what happened on Raw, or what happened on SmackDown, or what happened on any other AEW show. The reason why it's not that hard to find out what happened is you can just go on one thing. Ooh, there's all these dirt sheets out there. You can just click on that and they'll tell you right there. Dirt sheets has hurt professional wrestling. Some of y'all used to think, oh, well, it's because WWE didn't have a competition. No, I don't think it's that. That might have been part. That might have been like a little, maybe 30% to do with it. But the reason why is because of the internet. The internet, during the Monday Night Wars, the internet was not as big as it is now. There wasn't all these dirt sheets. There wasn't all these like sites you could go on, like Wrestle Inc. or SE Scoops or WrestleZone. There wasn't all those promotions, like little websites you can go on and be like, oh, if I don't want to watch Raw tonight, I could just read the results. Oh yeah, that's pretty much what it is now. And then you got people who do watch stuff and they'll spoil it for you because they're little assholes. Yeah, you know who you are when you do that. You got people who go out there and they spoil it for you because they just want to get a reaction, and they just want to fuck things up because they don't appreciate things that are there or given to them. I know that there's a little feud going on right now between two guys that I know very well, Dark Horse, DH Purge, and Polston, Prodigal Champ, Prodigal Hill. Both of those guys, when I was doing my old channel as Kev's Point of View, they both helped me out tremendously when I started. And yeah, I've heard Poston's rant about AEW, and I've heard, Danielson's defense on AEW. And I understand it from both sides, to be honest with you. I see it from both perspectives. I see AEW, even though their ratings are going up just a little bit, and they're making noise because obviously they're trending on Twitter now with all these signings that they're doing. But I still feel like that all these signings, no matter if Tony Khan's got all the money in the world, no matter if his dad is the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars and that they're billionaires, that's not the point. If you start giving out money like it's candy, and that's what Eric Bischoff did in WCW. That's the reason why WCW went in the shitter like it did. When you start spending out that money, you start going, "Here, Punk, here's your," I don't know. I don't know how much money he's making per year. I don't know how long his deal is. I haven't checked that out or anything like that. If someone knows, you can tell me in the comments if you want to. Because I'm pretty sure there'll be some people that are going to say something. But I welcome it. See, I'm not going to tell anybody that they shouldn't watch AEW. I'm not going to tell anybody they shouldn't watch WWE. It's good for both brands. It's good for professional wrestling, period. It makes both shows better. It's going to make WWE. It's going to have to. And the one thing I like about AEW doing this is because it's forcing WWE's hands to do something. It's forcing their hand. It's forcing them to be like, wow, we got to get creative now. Now we have to start building new stars. Now we got to start doing it. Look at that. Last week, a guy who should have been champion a long time ago, Big E, finally he's WWE champion. Then they brought back Brock Lesnar and Becky Lynch for SummerSlam. You don't think they didn't bring those two back quickly because of Punk and because of the reaction AEW's gotten? Vince is, even though people say Vince McMahon's out of touch, Vince McMahon is still the godfather of wrestling promoters. Whether you like him or you don't. Tony Khan is nowhere near Vince McMahon's level. But Tony Khan is also more personable. See, a lot of wrestlers thought Vince McMahon as a father figure. People look at Tony Khan as their best friend, like their buddy. That's when I see Tony Khan, he looks like a guy like that. He looks like someone that would be like, I sign your paychecks, but let's be friends. And that's a good thing, but that's also a bad thing. That's a bad thing in business. You don't mix business with pleasure. And right now, AEW's on a high note. They got all these wrestlers, and they probably will get Bray Wyatt. But then they're going to start thinking about it. Wow, what about all these other guys that we have? We brought all these guys in. We have like Hangman Page and Pac, and there's going to be some guys who are going to get lost in the shuffle. They're going to get lost in the shuffle. And to be honest with you, if I'm a free agent, I don't want to go just to AEW or WWE. I would want to go somewhere like NWA Power. I would want to build them up because I thought Billy Corrigan from Smashing Pumpkins is doing an excellent job with NWA Power. That all women's thing they did was off the hook. That's another thing with AEW. AEW has got to get their women's division better. Now, I like Dr. Britt Baker. Don't get me wrong. I think she's a great women's champion. She's a great heel. And yes, they signed Ruby Riott, Ruby Riott from WWE. But in WWE, let's not be all defense, WWE didn't use her correctly. But you need to sign these women. I mean, you got one of the biggest free agent women sitting there right now, a part of no promotion, and that's Tessa Blanchard. Yes, her dad is in AEW. that's a good sign to do something. All you gotta do is sign her fiance, who's also a wrestler, and boom, there you go. You have that. But I think the reason why the AEW doesn't pull the trigger on signing Tessa Blanchard because of all that rumor about her being racist and her not getting along with other females and this and that. That's probably slightly the reason why WWE hasn't hired her either, which both of them are idiots for not hiring. Because think about it. If WWE had her right now, Tessa Blanchard versus Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania, book it. I dare you. But also, I can tell that AEW is they are very diverse. They're more diverse than WWE is. You know, you have a transgender wrestler there who's very outspoken. You have a black woman wrestler, and then Tony Khan says, well, a guy like Hulk Hogan would never be welcome in AEW because he's a racist. Are you kidding me? If it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, let me just clarify this. Majority of these wrestlers would be working at gas stations right now. Tony Khan, sorry. Tony Khan would be washing cars at a local wash, if it wasn't for a guy like Hulk Hogan. So for them to say something like that, too, is blasphemy. In AEW, people want to say, well, AEW can go pick up Batista or they can go get The Rock. Neither one of those two would sign with AEW. Because both are being really successful in movies. So that's one. Two, WWE's the one that gave The Rock his start, and they gave Batista his start. So there's no way in hell that either one of those two would do that. But see, that's why if I'm AEW, I do sign Bray Wyatt. And when Kevin Owens gets free, if he decides not to re-sign with WWE and Sami Zayn, I think those two fit in perfectly with what AEW is trying to accomplish. If you're an indie wrestler and your name is big and you're looking to sign somewhere, don't go to WWE. Go to AEW. AEW likes their little vanilla midget wrestlers. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's true. I mean, Kevin Nash is right about that. There's a lot of small guys in AEW. Athletic, though, some of the best peer for pound wrestlers. But let's face facts too. AEW hasn't put on some of the best shows either. I mean, that little match, that little death match that happened, that was a disaster. I mean, it was not a Terry Funk versus Mick Foley death match or something like that. There was nothing like that. But I must face facts. I'm the type of guy who's going to give it to you like it is. I'll give you the good and the bad and the ugly of a promotion. And that's what I'm doing with AEW. Some of you can agree with it. Some of you can disagree with it. That's what's great about this world. You can disagree or agree. It's fine. But I'm glad though. But here's the thing that's probably not going to be popular with a bunch of wrestling fans, and I gotta be honest. Even if AEW succeeds and excels and gets up higher and higher and higher, and they're inching more and more and more towards WWE, and they somehow, I don't know, the next 2, 3, 4 years, they knock WWE off that pedestal. You still have a long way to go before you knock WWE off that pedestal, because WWE is probably the best. They're probably the most worldwide named promotion. They go overseas. They have 25 different countries that play their show. The money that they get from Saudi Arabia, the deal they have with Peacock, the deal they have with Fox and stuff like that. WWE's got money. Hell, WWE made a lot of money during a pandemic in a Thunderdome. They still released all those guys, but still, AEW was in the red. And AEW were actually started having fans come to their shows before WWE did. Facts. Straight up facts. Now, some of you who are jumping on CM Punk's bandwagon, I remember back when I did Kev's Point of Views podcast. Some of you who are jumping on Punk's bandwagon now, you guys were talking shit about CM Punk. And talking about how he shouldn't have left and took his ball, he went home. The fact that he got his ass kicked in UFC. Some of you laughed about it. Some of you made fun of him for it. But now you're on here, you're praising to the high heavens. Oh my God, CM Punk, he's the savior. CM Punk is money. No doubt about it. Being gone for 7 years, you tend to get a lot of attention. Punk's a smart guy. He's a businessman. He sees it. He went where he wanted to go. And yeah, WWE probably tried talking to him. I know Seth Rollins wanted that WrestleMania match with Punk. But let's face it. The way Punk wrestles and his ability, he fits in better with what AEW is doing. He can have that match again with Daniel Bryan. He can have that with Kenny Omega. He can have it. I'm waiting to see the Punk and Kenny Omega go at it. I mean, I would love to see Omega and Punk go at it. I'm a stickler for seeing great matches. It doesn't matter if it's from WWE. Doesn't matter if it's from AEW, Impact Wrestling. If I see a match that catches my attention, you get two big paws up from Big Kev, without a doubt. But before I end this little AEW stream, and I will be doing one where I dissect WWE, and then after I dissect the WWE one, then I'm going to put both together, and I'm going to tell you how both can do it. But I can tell you this right now. If WWE doesn't get their act together, if they go on thinking that now here's also something too. If you think WWE doesn't think AEW is competition, they're bullshitting you too. They're both bullshitters. They both watch what the other does. It's common sense. Otherwise, we wouldn't have seen Brock Lesnar back at SmackDown. I mean, in SummerSlam. We wouldn't have seen Becky Lynch back this early. You wouldn't have seen John Cena take 2 months out of his busy schedule to come back and drop a world title match against Roman Reigns. You wouldn't have seen it. The one thing, though, I do like about Kenny Omega is his love for professional wrestling. You could tell it in the fact that he won PD. I think the Pro Wrestling Illustrated, he was voted #1 best wrestler in the world. But he also said that other people deserve it too, and he even mentioned Roman Reigns. Kenny Omega, see, he has friends in WWE. He has friends in AEW. He has friends all over the world. When WWE tried to sign him before he signed with AEW, he said that WWE was very nice. Their deal was respectful, and that's how you are. You don't want to trash another company where you come from, because you never know if, say, for example, AEW runs out of business because they run out of money. Where are you going to go then? Impact Wrestling? You going to go back to New Japan? I mean, at that point, you can't burn bridges. In wrestling, you cannot burn bridges. Period. Punk burned bridges with WWE. That's on him. It's also on them as well. It's a double-edged sword. And I don't know WWE's idiotic move to hire Johnny Ace back as a talent scout for People Power. Why they would bring him back, knowing when they let Braun Strowman go, I was scratching my head. But then when they let Bray Wyatt go, my mouth dropped, and I'm like, do we have a 12-year-old that works for WWE now in the office? You just got rid of two big name stars on your Raw brand, because both were on Raw. They were both on Raw, on the Raw roster. I'm sure USA wasn't happy about that. Fuck, if that was my fucking network, I wouldn't have been happy about it. The only thing I will say about AEW is if they keep succeeding with what they're doing, they're getting people talking, and that's a good thing. But if they continue with hiring all these WWE guys, see, that's the one thing with AEW. When they first came out, I was excited because I'm like, wow, they got their own identity. And they still have their own identity, don't get me wrong, but if you keep hiring all this WWE talent, eventually people are going to look at it and be like, what is this, a WWE 2.0 show? You bringing in all these guys from WWE and you're not building your own talent. MJF, yeah, I love him. His little feud right now with Jericho is awesome. But at the same time, you got all these guys on there who are getting lost in the shuffle. And they need to be used as well, especially the ones who've been there since day fucking one. And that's the problem. AEW's hitting everything on the right path. They're using the old classic guys. They got managers, they got mouthpieces. They write their own promos. They go out there and they basically are themselves with the volume turned up. That's the best way to get over in this business, is be yourself with the volume turned up. And a lot of people don't want to go to a promotion like WWE, who basically tries to script what you say, unless you're a Brock Lesnar or a Goldberg or an Undertaker or a Triple H or an Edge or a John Cena or a Rock, who basically has the free reign, or Roman Reigns, to do whatever the hell they want to do. Unless you're that in that particular category, if you're in WWE, you got little keywords you got to say. You got to basically be scripted to say what you want to say. And maybe that's the reason why a lot of these guys left to go to AEW. That's probably the reason why Kevin Owens is going to do it. And I'm a big Kevin Owens fan. But not just because he has my name. Well, that is part of it. But I loved Kevin Owens. I like Kevin Owens when he was Kevin Steen in the Indies. Do I think WWE's using Kevin Owens to the best of his abilities? Fuck no. He will probably go to AEW, and that's perfectly fine because he fits the mold of what AEW is doing. AEW's got their own identity with what they want to do with their wrestling, what their in-ring abilities are. You can like it or you don't like it, and that's fine. You don't have to like it. But right now, AEW has got, pound for pound, they got a more athletic roster than WWE does. But WWE's got a bigger name roster than AEW does. Facts is facts. But if you guys want to have the nice little debate, just leave your comments on there and I will definitely read them. And If there's anything I missed out, please let me know. Like, share, sub, hit that notification bell. You want to get notifications from my channel. And I'm out.